asking a question, then feel free to unmute it. And with that, we will start with the first three questions. I'm sorry, Coach, did you have anything you want to say?
Yeah, just great to see everybody. I know it's been a while since we got together on one of these, but obviously excited to be back in the facility. We've had the rookies around, the coaches around, been a great energy, and the players are reporting today for their first round of testing. And so everybody's fired up, and I can't wait to get out to the field.
Okay, that will open up for the first three, and we'll go with Mike Jurecki, Bob McManam, and Josh Weinfuss, please.
Coach, last year you guys made major strides with the offensive line, with drafting Josh Jones, retaining Marcus Gilbert, Justin Murray, bringing in Beecham. How good could this group be this season?
We're excited about that depth that you just mentioned. I think we didn't expect to have Josh around there in the third round. We had him rated a lot higher than that. So to pick him up there was huge. To get Marcus back, who has been an elite tackle in this league for a bunch of years, had some tough injuries the last couple, but get him back and feeling good is huge. And then Kelvin is a guy who started in this league, was a captain with the Jets, and can play right or left tackle. So to have that type of depth sitting there with Justin Murray, who came a long way last year at right tackle when he was kind of forced into duty, we feel like we're in a lot better place this year to start the season than we were last year, and that's what you want to see. You want to see that type of progression, particularly with your offensive line.
Hey, Kliff, it's Bobby Mack. I was curious if you've had any conversations with any of your players at all about whether they may or may not opt out, and are you worried some of your guys might go that route as we're seeing across the league?
I haven't had a discussion with a player who's brought that up yet. Noticed there were some names today, and this is uncharted territory. And so, as we found with scheduling and other things, as an organization right now, it's fluid, it's day to day. But I have not had a conversation of that nature yet.
Hey, Kliff, Josh Weinfuss with ESPN. This might be the first offseason that Kyler has not had any other responsibilities since maybe middle school or elementary school. How do you think all that time focusing on football is going to help him, and where is it going to help him specifically?
Yeah, Josh, that's a great point. He's always kind of rolled right into another sport. And so to just be a football player, and that's his job and his profession, obviously we would have liked to have him on the grass for some of the off-season training, but just staying in touch with him over the last few months, he's been working his tail off. It's been all football all the time, whether it's working out or throwing or studying film. And so I feel like he's still going to take some huge strides. You think you saw a lot of that progression towards the end of the season, and just speaking with him, his confidence level, his understanding of our system is night and day from where it was last year. And so we're really fired up to get him out there and try to take that next step this season.
Next three, please. Kyle Odegaard, Richard Sines, Darren Urban.
Hey, Kliff. It sounds like Pete Carroll was saying that he's going to try to keep Russell and Geno Smith separated and not have them in the same position group room. Have you given that any thought with Kyler and Brett as far as that position being so important and trying to keep those guys away from each other?
We've had those discussions, I think, in multiple positions. What is the best way to handle that? What does that look like exactly? And that's something that'll be ongoing. But I do feel like there's some positives to that, obviously, with trying to handle this season and what we have going on.
Hey, Coach. Richard Sines here with Fox 10. I want to say good to see you. You know, you've been in this league as both a player and a coach now. When you look at a guy like Larry Fitzgerald, who's now in the top 100 for 10 straight years, just what it takes to be that good that long. What goes through your mind?
You know, just being around him 1 year, I was always a fan from afar, but just 1 year, his intensity at practice is unlike anything I've ever seen. I mean, it's when he's on that practice field, he's giving you everything he's got every single day, regardless of who he's going against or what number rep it is. I mean, he only knows one speed. And then you look at how he handles himself off the field, taking care of his body, you know, doing everything necessary to extend his career. He's one of the best to ever do it, and just honored to be around him every day.
Hey, Kliff, a couple different things. One, obviously with no preseason games and potentially a limited amount of padded practices, how concerned or how are you kind of embracing how that's going to affect you once you get to games? And then also secondly, now that you finally got Isaiah Simmons in the building, I'm wondering if your thought process has changed with him at all, given the fact that he's going to have a limited amount of run up before the season starts.
It lines up very similarly to how we had it in college. And so just being a year removed from that, how we built up, there were no preseason games. You just know what you got and not what anybody else has. And so there's definitely going to be some anxiety heading into that first week. And, it's going to be new for everybody. And we'll do the best we can to maximize those padded practices. And you're trying to get your starters and number 2 guys ready. And at the same time, do a lot of evaluations on your young guys. And so I think practice scheduling is going to be key and finding a way to fit it all in. So we'll see. Isaiah has, he's been impressive since we drafted him in the meetings, his attention to detail, his retention of the information. And then, they don't make him much prettier when he walks in the building. So it'll be fun to get him out there and watch him run around here soon.
Next up, please, Kent Summers, Mark McClune, Jess Root.
Kliff, we've all lived through this virus the last 4 months. What do you think a couple of the determining factors will be if, in the league being successful in this endeavor to get a season in?
I think the NFL and the NFLPA have done a tremendous job with their medical teams, the research, the long hours they put in to come up with what they feel is answers for almost any scenario that can come up. That being said, nobody's ever been here before. So I think solidarity across the league, it's going to take everybody doing the right thing all the time to make this happen. And when there is a bump in the road, let's get it handled the best we can. And every team being flexible and every team understanding there is going to be some tough times. And, we all got to buy in and stick together through the ups and downs of what's going to be an unparalleled season.
Hey, Kliff. Thanks for the time today. Hey, curious, what does the testing protocol kind of look like inside the building as far as guys getting tested, going to the weight room, going onto the field? And then how much have you kind of monitored what baseball is going through now? You talk about those bumps in the road, and we'll use that as an example for your team and I guess throughout the league on what it could look like and how to handle it.
Yeah, I think the protocols are pretty standard throughout the league. They're very thorough, very efficient. It's a meticulous process, and our medical staff here, led by Tom Reed, and our operations staff, has done a tremendous job setting it up. I noticed what happened in baseball, and the protocols here, they're not meant to have zero positives. It's meant to limit the positives you have, and then when you do recognize them, to handle that situation accordingly as quickly as you can. And so that's what we're all working towards and working through.
Hey, Kliff, couple of things. One, what do you hope and expect to see from the young receivers you added last year? And two, are there any players that you anticipate are going to have to start off camp on PUP?
As far as PUP goes, not that I'm aware of. Having kind of that extended time, I think, to heal up and rehab has been really good for a lot of those guys coming off injuries. The young wideouts, Hakeem and Andy and Keyshawn got thrown in the fire last year, and looking at them, talking to them, there's a different swagger about them. There's a different confidence level. They know what they're coming into now. So I expect them to step up and take that year or two progression that you're looking for.
Next up, we have Pedro Gomez, Craig Fouie, and Omar Ruiz, please.
Hey, Kliff. Given that we were all 23, 24 years old at one time, and we thought we were all invincible, and we see what's happening in baseball with young players, how much are you going to use that to reinforce how careful everyone has to be?
Yeah, Pedro, that's a great point. I think you have another sport that's going through it right now, something that in season that you can point to and see what's going right, what's going wrong, and how we can try to learn from it. And I mentioned it earlier, it's going to take everybody. It's young, old. I feel great about our leadership. I feel great about some of the veterans we have on this team that can help guide those younger players. And but it'll be a work in progress. I think if you're not learning from these other sport leagues, then you're missing out. And we'll definitely be monitoring them and try to adjust from there.
Craig Fouie, ABC 15, Coach. Thanks for taking time. Just give us an idea, big picture, what it looks like for you. Are you in contact with your coaching staff around a table? Are you seeing any players person to person? What's it like for you right now, big picture wise?
There's still a lot of virtual meetings at this point. We will have some in-person meetings where everyone's distanced out as we get rolling. The walkthroughs have been good. We're allowed an hour walk through the rookies right now, and so that's more in-person type situation. But it's been part virtual and part in-person, and it'll probably remain that way most of the season.
Hey, Kliff, good to see you. Thanks for taking the time. Just curious about those virtual meetings, both in training camp and throughout this season. Do you anticipate the position groups to be met? Will the players be at the facility, kind of spaced out in the virtual meetings with their coaches, or they'll be at home at that point? And then my second question, just in general, is now that people have been in the building, you guys have done the day-to-day in this new world, these protocols. How fluid is it? Have there already been changes based on things that you've noticed, actually doing the job, versus kind of what you'd seen on the list of what you can and cannot do, kind of thing? Can you walk us through that maybe a little bit?
Starting with the virtual meetings, it'll be both. There'll be some days where we'll have those guys at their house, in position meetings, team meetings, things of that nature. And then other days where they will be at the facility spread out, watching their position meetings virtually in different areas of the stadium. And to the second point, everything is fluid. I've never seen so many schedule changes as we've kind of gotten information and figured things out and tweaked things here and there. And so it's I mentioned earlier, nobody's ever been here before. We're all doing our best to work through it and do what's best for this organization. It may not look the same, at all 32 places, but I think each team is going to try to figure out the best answer to stand healthy and have the most successful season they can have.
Next up, please, Howard Balzer, Bob McManaman, Josh Weinfuss.
Hi, Kliff. I know there's a lot of chatter around the league about this, quote, quarantine quarterback, and you're asked about separating guys. But that's been part of the discussion. And kind of along with that, with the release of Drew the other day, is that as much because you're not going to have as many practices? You don't think you need 4 guys? Or might you add somebody a little bit later when
Yeah, the quarterback discussion will be ongoing, how that's going to look, whether we keep those guys in the same meeting room, keep them apart, make sure they're a part of practice. We're still working through the logistics of that. And then we really like Drew, but when it cut down to 80, we were excited about signing Chris Stredler this offseason. He's an athletic guy who can do a bunch of different things, and we wanted to get a good look at him. So Drew was more a casualty of that negotiation than anything else.
Hey, Kliff, from a personal standpoint, how were you able to keep your spirits up knowing of the slow ramp up, the limited practice, no preseason games? This was really going to be a special year for you and this organization to pick it back up and get to that next step. What are you feeling?
We still feel that way. I think everybody in this building is excited about some of the players we've brought in, returning a lot of the same coaching staff, same schemes. And so we're anxious. I think we're all just fired up to be back at work. We know how fortunate we are to have jobs and be pushing to try and make this thing work. And I think that's more than anything is everybody's in this building is feeling very grateful, very excited, and just happy to be back at work and be around each other.
Hey, Kliff, do you, I guess the better way to ask this is, where are the players going to stay in training camp? Are they going to stay in the hotel, or are they going to stay at home? And then the other question I have is, how long is your ramp up going to be, and when do you expect guys to hit the field?
So players, based on the negotiations, will have the option Some will stay in the hotel out there next to State Farm Stadium, and some will go home every night. And so they'll select that option and make it work from there. And then we will be at the Dignity Health Center for probably until the 9th before we head out of State Farm. And then a couple more days of ramp up before we'll actually be in the stadium working drills, getting into that next phase. So that's kind of how it lines up right now. It's been fluid the last week or so, but I think it's pretty much locked in at this point.
Sorry about that. I had it muted. Next up, Kyle Odegaard, Darren Urban, Catherine Fitzgerald, please.
Kliff, if Marcus Gilbert is feeling healthy, does he slot back in as your starting right tackle, or is that more of an open competition?
We discussed that. We want to see how Marcus looks. He says he feels the best he's felt in a long time, having all these extra months of rehab, not being forced back anything, may be huge for him. And so he has been a really good player in this league a long time. And if he can start off at that level, then he's going to slide right back in there at right. But we're excited to have some options too. Like I said, Justin's development last year, drafting Josh, signing Kelvin, that's going to be huge. But we expect Marcus to be able to slide in there and do a nice job right away.
Kind of building off that, Kliff, and just in general with camp battles, with relatively little time, and you haven't been able to really see anybody in the off season. Do you anticipate, have you already kind of looked at the roster and have a pretty good idea what you want to do, or are you trying to make it still with some wide open competition, even though there's probably going to be less of a run up?
We definitely want to create as much competition as possible. There's no doubt. I think the tough part is for those younger players, the amount of reps that they're going to get is going to be diminished a lot. We all know that when you lose preseason games, opportunities to show what you can do there. But we want to make sure those guys still have a chance to compete when the opportunity arises.
Hey, Kliff. I'm curious about looking back at last year. This team really struggled coming off of the bye. And if there does end up being a pause in the season, like we've already seen from baseball, what are some lessons that y'all can take from what happened last year to kind of, balance that if there's a break in the schedule, especially if it's unexpected?
Yeah, do everything opposite of whatever we did last year. I think that's been my case to the coaches. It was that was the one game where I felt like we didn't coach well, we didn't play well, we just didn't look like the team we'd been the other 15 weeks. And you come off a bye right into a Thanksgiving week type scenario. It was just kind of the perfect storm. And for a first-year head coach in the NFL, I probably didn't handle it real well. And so we're going to definitely we've talked to other teams how they've done different things throughout that bye week, and we're definitely going to adjust that moving forward.
Okay, we'll wrap up with David Brandt, Mike Jurecki, Craig Fouey.
Hey, Kliff, we've all obviously lived on Zoom or FaceTime the past few months, whatever profession we're in. So I was kind of curious, now that you've done this for a while and had meetings with coaches, what are the things that work surprisingly well about online interaction, and what things have you missed the most about preparation, other than the obvious physical stuff? But what are the easier things to get done, and what has really been an issue?
Yeah, I think presentation-wise, you're able to get your points across as well as you would in person. I think some things are pretty smooth when it comes to that. What I miss is the interaction. I was joking with Mark earlier. You'll tell a joke that you think is really funny, and it's just dead silence. So you kind of it falls flat for you. But I think just seeing people's facial expressions, whether you're in a position meeting, whether you're in a team meeting, that they get it, they understand, they're into it, that's definitely lost through Zoom.
Kliff, we know Patrick Peterson has a chip on his shoulder. He's motivated for the season. What does that mean to that defense where on paper the secondary's returning a lot of starters? Maybe they're going to have to carry their water early on, but you could see he's got a chip on his shoulder.
I'm excited for Pat. Last year was tough. We all know that. Everybody expected him to come back in after sitting out for 2 months and be Superman. And it took him, a few games to get his legs back underneath him. By that last month, he was playing at that high level we all expect from him. So to have this whole offseason to train, I know he's highly motivated. He's been one of the best DBs in the history of the league when you look at what he's accomplished. So couldn't be more thrilled for him and to get out there and see what he looks like this fall.
Kliff, once you had DeAndre Hopkins and Kenyon Drake, you knew those guys were in place. You've got Kyler coming back for a year or two. How tempted were you to do a lot of scheming and try to create something new with DeAndre Hopkins versus what you learned last year in your first year in the NFL? How tough was that?
It's tough when you have quarantine. You got a bunch of free time just to draw crazy plays. So we're going to try to minimize that and just let DeAndre be the great player he is. We're going to have different things, different ways to try to get him the football, obviously. But we like the progress of this offense, kind of the direction it took late in the year. I feel like we kind of found our identity, and he's just going to be an added weapon that's just going to hopefully make us that much better moving forward.